Just sharing a conversation. Arrow.net, ARROE.net. We are unplugged and totally uncut with Andre Gaines.
Good. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. I got to thank you for this book because so much history has been lost since Jackie Robinson that we don't know how we got up to a Sammy Sosa. We don't know how we got up to a Ricky Henderson and baseball players such as that. That journey is lost in history, but not anymore.
No, it's very true. A lot of people don't realize the sort of full breadth of Jackie Robinson's story. It generally starts and stops when he integrates the game of baseball in 1947. But there's a whole decade of not only his baseball career before he retires in 1957, but an enormous life after he retires as a civil rights leader. And we really never see that piece of Jackie Robinson's story. We can just see him doing some amazing things on the field, but the life that he lived after retiring from baseball as a civil rights leader, a very prominent one, especially with Dr. King, it was substantial, and frankly, him integrating baseball was probably the least important thing that he did and the legacy that he left behind.
I talked with his daughter one time, and one of the things that we both agreed upon was that his passion for people and community was just mind-blowing, and so many people did not understand that about him in the game in his heart.
Yeah, it's interesting because Jackie Robinson always had that in his heart. When he integrated the game of baseball, it was by design that he would not speak out and speak up against discrimination, racism, and inequality. He was, sort of manufactured, if you will, in some way by Branch Rickey to not fight back, to not stand up against the racial slurs and epithets that were being hurled at him on the field. But he always had this deep passion for civil rights and for human rights on a whole. So he finally got to really do that. And, so we see a little bit of it in his later career, but we see it especially once he retires, that he finally got the opportunity to do that. And thankfully, because of that, he gave, birth and protection and support to this next wave of guys, namely in our film, Bill White, Bob Gibson, and Curt Flood, that he was there to support.
Did he have the opportunity to sit down with each of these players and say, I realize that we came from the same baseball diamond, but you're representing a generation. You're representing people. You need to be a representative more than just a player.
He did. And there was so much more of it that we couldn't even put into the film. We just ran out of time. But we do have it in the film. I mean, he had a personal relationship with these players. We have a photo of him and Bob Gibson. We've got him, photos of him and Curt Flood and them standing up next to each other at the podium during a, civil rights rally that Jackie Robinson had invited him and Bill White to. And so he was this incredible mentor and advocate and supporter. I mean, even down to writing telegrams on their behalf to get into the neighborhood that they wanted to live in, that they wanted to integrate. Of sending Bill White notes, in support of him integrating the housing for the players during spring training, and showing up where he was needed to march or to protest, showing up to Curt Flood's court cases when he sued the league against the reserve clause. So Jackie was there. He was there in such a big way, and he just really doesn't get a lot of credit for that. And so we wanted to try to change that in the course of this film.
It's almost like you've created beyond the vision, beyond our personal baseball dreams and stuff like that. You're saying, look, there was a real guy that was here, and he still made a difference off from the baseball field, and that we out here as viewers can look at that and say, well, I can do more as well.
Yeah, that's my hope, is that viewers take that away, because I mean another version, another name for this film, was going to potentially be Beyond 42. Oh, wow. Sort of after Jackie, Beyond 42, because of what it is he did beyond just the number on his back. Which has been retired officially and, gets worn by all ball players during Jackie Robinson Day, April 15th. And it was just the triumphs that he and the things he was able to achieve after he left the game off of the field. I mean, the last thing I'll say about this is that he was a player first and then became an activist. Mm-hmm. But the wave of guys that came after him with Bill White, Bob Gibson, and Curt Flood, this is the first time we're really seeing the combined player activists, the guys who are playing at the highest level on the field, but also down in the Deep South, marching and protesting against racial discrimination and inequality. And so Jackie Robinson gave birth to that by virtue of his achievements, and we were able to really highlight that in this movie.
What's very inspiring about this is I'm in the South. I know how the South has treated people, and especially all the different sports players and stuff like that. But what's great about this is that when he was up there to bat, you couldn't read anything that could have been negative going through his life, but he activated that energy after the game of baseball. Like you said, he became an activist, an activator in making sure that his community changed.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we show in this film Jackie giving speeches during the civil rights movement. I mean, at the request of Dr. King, at the request of other civil rights leaders that he was allied with, and we don't really see that. We don't get to see that, and that was something I really wanted to highlight. It's kind of like we have the status quo understanding of Jackie Robinson, but he was so much more than that, and so much of his life beyond the game is exactly the legacy, what he did for others. That's his legacy. How
did sports fans see that new Jackie Robinson in the way that, we all fall in love with the baseball legend, but all of a sudden he has a voice? Whoa, where'd this come from?
Well, that's a new piece of information that I had discovered in this process with my team of researchers, and just really that when Jackie Robinson, by the time he retired, was one of the most hated men in baseball, but hated by the villains that were hurling racial epithets at him, all day long while he was on the field. Because he finally stood up and spoke out, because he finally was not going to take these biased plays. He was not going to take these unjust calls that were happening in the game just because he was a black man on the field. And so he always had this great passion for civil rights, and he finally was able to speak out about it toward the end of his career. And then finally, once he retired. And so that's the Jackie Robinson that a lot of people don't know and have never heard the word Jackie Robinson being a hated man in baseball before. I mean, that was all through the trades and articles written about it, which we were able to focus on, but really focus on the work that he did, which was extraordinary and something that we wanted to pay homage to.
The journey to gain access to all of this historic information, it has to serve as a teacher for future stories and stuff like that. What was that one thing that stood out that said, we've never tried this before to get the information, the history, but you know what? We're gonna work on it in the future as well.
Yeah, so with History Channel, who was our partner in this, they embraced really so much of the vision that I had for this film from the beginning, that I couldn't have asked for a better partner and supporter. I mean, and obviously in our executive producer, LeBron James, and then Stanley Nelson, who was also an executive producer. What we were able to do here is use so many of the tools that are in the filmmaker toolbox and elements, such as animation. We have some in there. We have heavy amount of archival footage and material that dates back to the 50s and 60s and even before then. We have some fantastic interviews of modern day players, with Mookie Betts and most recently retired CC Sabathia. So many different elements that we were able to put together to tell this story, and I think audiences will really enjoy it.
Did you document this? And the reason why I bring that up is because we all fell in love with the Beatles' Get Back, with the story of music coming together. Your journey of putting all of this together. There are so many people that are in hiding right now with their creativity that don't know how to grow their passion for baseball or civil rights and stuff like that. And yet you have made this happen. We need to know your story as well.
Oh, sure. Well, my story is I'm grew up in Ohio, went to school at Northwestern as an undergraduate, and went to NYU, to New York University, as a grad student in film. And as a storyteller, started mainly as a writer and producer, and then eventually stepped into the director's chair. And as a storyteller, especially in the documentary space, really feel an obligation to put these stories in their proper place. These stories, these incidents, these historic figures, put them in their proper place, give them their proper due. That was the case with my first film, the one and only Dick Gregory, about the late great comedian.
Yes.
And the same thing here with After Jackie, with a little bit of information about Jackie Robinson that people have not heard, and a lot of information about these unsung heroes in the form of Bill White, Bob Gibson, and Curt Flood that people just haven't heard. So it's been an honor. It's been fun. It's been a privilege. It's a lot of work. But at the end of the day, we sort of let this child out into the world for the world to see and be able to enjoy. So I'm glad that we finally got to the finish line.
So how do these ideas come to you, such as After Jackie? I remember doing a big book on John Lennon, and the idea hit me while I was walking through a mall, and I just wanted to argue with myself, no. Did you find yourself in a struggle like that, or was like, okay, here we go?
Yeah, well, as a storyteller, you can relate that these ideas sometimes just fall out of the sky. I would say most of my great ideas happen in the shower where I can't write them down. I got to keep repeating them to myself while I'm getting ready in the morning until I can get to a place where I actually can try to write some of them down. So yeah, they come from multiple different places. I'm a fan of all live sports, not just baseball. But with baseball particularly, you can track as a direct correlation of the history of baseball and the history of the United States. And you can really sort of put them side by side and really sort of see the progress or lack thereof that has occurred in the country through the lens of baseball. And I think the tribalization of sports is kind of one of the only ways that we all, bring people together, whether you're black, white, Republican, Democrat, whatever it is. Everybody comes together, through sports. And with baseball, you just have that parallel where we're able to see both the historical aspect and the game at the same time. And it was an opportunity that just really made sense and something I wanted to bring to the world. Well,
inside your heart, Paul Harvey must have been sitting next to you, because when you watch After Jackie, I can just hear Paul Harvey say, "And now you know the rest of the story."
Oh, sure. Yeah. There's so much more. This could easily be in a 6-part documentary. We had to squeeze it into 2 hours, but there's so much more, which always breaks the filmmaker's heart, breaks my heart, the things that we have to leave on the cutting room floor. But, thankfully we have YouTube. That's what.
Oh my God, you're so true. Please come back to the show anytime in the future, Andre. The door is always going to be open for you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was great talking to you. I'll take you up on that offer.
You be brilliant then, okay, sir?
Thank you so much. Have a great day.